Falling into poverty because of her ex-husband, a nurse reluctantly agreed to care for a dying rich man. But overhearing a conversation between his wife and the doctor, Agata Arias worked as a nurse in a clinic. Her husband, Adrian, was a good person but suffered from a gambling addiction. They lived in a 2-room apartment bought on a mortgage. The family had 2 children, 6-year-old twins Esmeralda and Augustin, who needed to be fed and clothed. Agata did her best to provide everything necessary for her family, but her nurse's salary wasn't enough to cover all the bills and accumulated debts. Adrian continued to gamble, ignoring his wife's pleas and tears, as well as their massive debts. Every day, Agata tried to guide her husband onto the right path, but always without success. "Adrian, how long can this go on? You stay up all night on the computer, you have a family, we have growing children, and you're still engrossed in games as if you haven't grown out of toys yourself." "Agata, but I'm not just sitting here for nothing, I'm earning money," Adrian protested. "Earning? Seriously? I don't feel any money in my hands, only bills come and the debts grow. You promised you would quit gambling, but nothing changes," Agata fumed. "Just give me a little more time, I'll definitely turn things around. There's an important tournament coming up soon, I'll win and pay off all the debts." "How much longer? You just keep promising. I'm tired of living in constant fear that they'll cut off our electricity or gas, that collectors will come. I want a peaceful life, not the one we have now. But I'm trying, Agata. I really want to change my life, but it's so hard." "Then put in more effort. Quit your games and find a real job. Stop living in the virtual world, it's time to return to reality." "Okay, Agata, I'll try," Adrian promised once again. And, of course, as usual, he didn't keep his promise, breaking down the very next evening to place a small bet. Then he wanted to play poker online, even if just for fun, and it spiraled from there. In fact, they already owed many people, and they were being pulled deeper into the quicksand of debt. The scariest part was that creditors and collectors constantly called, threatening to take everything, including the only apartment they all lived in together. Every time Agata saw a call from an unknown number, cold sweat broke out. Conversations with collectors were always similar, but that didn't make them any easier. "Hello, Agata. Did you take out a loan from Capital Bank?" The creditors would ask each time, only the names of the financial institutions changed. "Yes, I did take it out, but I pay it back every month," Agata usually began to explain, fully understanding where this conversation was heading. "You do pay, but it's not enough. You've missed several payments, you have accumulated a debt, plus you've been fined for the delays, so to get back on the payment schedule, you need to pay more, including the overdue amount and penalties." "But I can't pay more, my salary doesn't allow it." "We know your salary amount. But you must have had something in mind when you took out the loan. The increase in payment amounts is your fault. If you had paid on time as agreed in the contract, you wouldn't have to pay more, so this is entirely your fault. And if you don't increase the payments, we will be forced to go to court and demand the seizure of all your property for subsequent sale." "No, please don't do that, I have 2 small children. I need to provide for them somehow." "Then pay the debt on time and stay on schedule. Sell some of your property yourself so that we don't have to. If we have to do it, you won't have the right to choose what gets sold." "I'll think about it," Agata promised. "Think quickly, time is running out. We'll call you again this week and keep calling until you get back on schedule with your payments." Agata felt emotionally drained and helpless in the face of these problems. She understood that to keep her family together, she needed to help her husband overcome his cursed addiction. One evening, when she was returning home after a long workday, Adrian called her and said he had lost all their money in another game. "Agata, I'm so sorry, but I lost all our money." "What? How could you? We just talked about this recently, you promised me," Agata began to yell at him. She clenched her fist so hard that her knuckles turned white. I know, but I just couldn't stop. It was the last game. I was sure I would win, Adrian began to justify himself. The last game? Seriously? How many times have we heard that? Agata continued to yell. Aren't you tired of your own lies? I understand that you're angry. I would be angry too if I were in your place. But you're not in my place. Yes, I'm angry, very angry. We had plans for that money, and now it's gone. I promise this won't happen again. I'll find a way to fix everything. Why make empty promises when you know you won't keep your word? Throwing words to the wind has become normal for you. And now I have to think again about how to get us out of this situation. I don't know what I'll do. I have no strength or desire left to keep cleaning up after you and steering us out of the dead-end situations you always put us in. This was the last straw for Agata. She realized she couldn't continue living like this. Out of desperation, Agata decided to seek help from a widely advertised psychologist. Hello. What brings you to me? Is something bothering you? The psychologist asked the visitor, who was timidly standing near the door. Hello, Agata greeted. I have a very big problem in my family. You were recommended to me as a good family psychologist, but I don't know if you can help me. Coming to you is my last attempt to save my family. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that my services are recommended, the psychologist replied with a smile. How can I help you? Let's at least try to sort out your issue. My husband often gambles in various online casinos, places bets on betting sites, and loses all our money. Moreover, trying to win it back, he borrows money from friends and microloan companies. As a result, we're drowning in debt. I can't repay one debt before new ones appear. You see, we have 2 children, and my nurse's salary isn't enough to constantly cover my husband's debts and support the children. Please tell me, is there any way to get rid of my husband's addiction? Agata asked hopefully. The thing is, gambling addiction is a serious problem and requires professional treatment, the psychologist explained. Gambling is a form of non-chemical or behavioral addiction. The key treatment method for gambling addiction is psychotherapy, which has the highest proven effectiveness. But how can I persuade my husband to undergo such psychotherapy? He doesn't believe he has an addiction and refuses to do anything about it, Agata said sadly, beginning to doubt the success of her endeavor. Seeking help from a psychotherapist is always a delicate matter. You'll need to be tactful and patient. Express your concerns calmly, suggest seeking help from a specialist in a non-pushy and friendly manner. Addicted people often deny their addiction, so you'll need to be persistent. It's important to choose the right time for discussion, preferably in a calm atmosphere and not during a game. Don't try to insist during an argument. Be prepared for resistance from him, but continue to convincingly present arguments in favor of seeking help from a psychotherapist. You might not even mention that you're going to a psychotherapist, just say you want to consult a specialist psychologist. Believe me, for many, it sounds less intimidating. Are there any other ways out of this situation? If we're talking not specifically about your husband, but about the family in general, there are several ways to address the problem. One option is for you or your husband to find a higher-paying job. You can also seek help from special services or charitable organizations. But this only neutralizes the consequences, it doesn't solve the problem itself, so I strongly recommend bringing your husband to psychotherapy sessions. Thank you. I'll try to persuade my husband to come to a session with you, but I doubt that anything will come of it. Adrian reacts very negatively to all my requests related to his gambling, and immediately starts to throw a fit and make a scene. After saying this, Agata left the office. When she got home, Agata thought long and hard about the psychologist's words. When her husband came home late in the evening, she tried to start a conversation with him. Adrian, we need to talk seriously. Agata, I'm very tired. I have to get up early for work tomorrow, so I need to get some sleep. Have some consideration, let's leave the talk for the weekend, Adrian protested. You always say that, and when the weekend comes, you start yelling that it's your only day off and you have the right to rest, then you ask to wait until your vacation, but when the vacation comes, you come up with new excuses, and so it goes endlessly. So we will talk here and now, immediately, Agata stated firmly. You're never satisfied with anything, you always nag and buzz in my ear like an annoying fly, her husband shouted, losing his temper. What else am I supposed to do? Pat you on the head for your behavior, thank you for making it impossible for me to feed the kids because of your losses in online casinos? We are practically begging for alms because of you. You spend not only your money but mine too, even the children's allowances. Do you even understand what you're doing? Aren't you at least a little ashamed? That's it, I've had enough, Adrian roared, I can't take it anymore. You've all driven me to my limit. We've driven you to your limit? With what? With the fact that the kids sometimes need to eat? Why did you even have children if you weren't planning to spend a cent on them? Agata yelled, completely losing her composure. It's because of you that we have all these problems. My salary and child support would be enough to feed the kids, so I'm filing for divorce. To hell with all of you. Adrian shouted and, slamming the door loudly, left the apartment. Agata sighed in relief. She couldn't endure another of her husband's tantrums with breaking dishes and destroying everything in his path. The children had grown accustomed to their parents' frequent arguments and immediately locked themselves in their room at the first sign of conflict. Every time after another of her husband's losses, Agata tried to appeal to his conscience. Adrian, what you are doing is beyond comprehension. I can't watch you continue to waste our money on online casinos and betting sites. This has long been a serious problem. Oh, Agata, don't be such a nag, it's just entertainment. I'm not doing anything wrong, her husband drawled, annoyed by his wife's constant reproaches. Entertainment? Adrian, we are barely making ends meet, and you keep wasting money on these foolish games, Agata snapped. We have more important things that need money. 2 children to feed, clothe, and shoe, and daycare isn't free. And we can't get additional aid because our official income on paper doesn't qualify our family as low income, even though we're drowning in debt and the children don't see any benefit from it. Oh, come on, Agata, relax a little. I know when to stop, everything is under control. Under control? Adrian, get a grip. Do you even believe the nonsense you tell everyone? There's no hint of control, you gamble away most of our income and even play on credit. You've dragged us into enormous debts and even take the children's allowances. Please, stop gambling, we can't take it anymore, Agata pleaded. Listen, I know you're worried, but I'm trying to win a big sum to pay off all the debts at once and secure a comfortable future for us, and you just don't get it and keep distracting me with your constant reproaches. This throws me off, and that's why I can't win. Adrian, are you out of your mind? You have an addiction, and you're blaming me for your losses? You need to understand that your behavior is abnormal. We need to find a solution to this problem, maybe seek a specialist or join a support group for people with gambling issues, Agata suggested. You think I'm crazy? Adrian roared. I need a specialist? It's you driving me crazy with your nagging and whining. It's my money, if you must know, I earn it, so I have every right to spend it as I see fit. You don't. You have children, and you are obligated to support them. Even if you don't care about me, you can't neglect the kids. Who are you to tell me how to live? Adrian lost control and started kicking and knocking over anything in his path. No one can tell me what to do. Got it? No one. Agata knew this wasn't a life, but a nightmare. Childhood should be the happiest time in a child's life, and it terrified her to think of what memories her children would have. Agata shook her head, driving away the sad thoughts. No, she definitely needed to change something, if not for herself, then for the children and their bright future. She decided to go to a lawyer the next day to file for divorce and child support, but her plans were not to come to fruition. There was a commotion outside. A car alarm was blaring nonstop, and people were shouting. Agata decided to see what was happening. Approaching the window, she saw a group of people gathered below, loudly discussing something. Soon, ambulances and police cars arrived. Agata realized something unusual had happened. Not one to be a nosy onlooker, she stepped away from the window, leaving the matter to the authorities. 5 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Agata thought her husband had returned and opened the door without checking the peephole. A police officer stood on the threshold. "Hello, do you know Adrian Arias?" "Yes, he's my husband." "What did he do?" Agata asked, bewildered. "You need to come down with us," the officer explained. "Excuse me, but what is this about?" "It's very late. I have small children at home. I can't leave them alone. Ask one of your neighbors to stay with the children. This won't take long, but we need to complete the procedure. Believe me, it's very important. At this late hour, I can't ask anyone to watch the children. If it won't take long, I'll just tell the kids I'll be back soon. But please, let's finish this quickly." "Though I don't understand why you need me," Agata said, hastily locking the front door. She went downstairs with the police officers. Outside the building was an ambulance, and despite the late hour, neighbors were standing around, strangely looking at Agata and whispering among themselves. Approaching closer, Agata saw a large brownish stain on the ground that hadn't been there during the day. The back door of the ambulance was open, and inside, on a stretcher, lay something large covered with a white sheet. "We're going to conduct an identification. The neighbors have given their statements, but we need a relative to confirm the identity before the body is taken to the morgue," the police officer informed Agata without any preamble. "What body?" Agata didn't understand. But her heart suddenly started pounding harder than usual, a vague sense of foreboding gnawing at her, as if a large, frightening shadow loomed over her. The medics pulled back the sheet, and the police officer led Agata closer to the open ambulance. There, on the stretcher, lay a person, or rather, something resembling a person. Instead of a face, it was just a bloody mess. Agata began to understand the origin of the brown stain she had seen in front of the house, but she still didn't grasp why they were showing this to her. In a daze, she stared at the lifeless body, which, judging by the clothing, belonged to a man. Suddenly, her gaze caught a familiar item. The jeans had been hemmed at the bottom, and she could see that it was done by hand. The stitches were neat, done with blue thread, but at the end, there was a white thread, as if the person who hemmed the pants had run out of blue thread and used whatever was available to finish the job. Agata remembered hemming her husband's jeans in the same way recently, running out of blue thread. It was too late to go to the store, so she made a few stitches with white thread, intending to redo it later but forgetting. A terrible thought crossed her mind. What if this isn't just a coincidence? What's the likelihood that these white stitches on a blue background aren't just similar, but the same? Agata began closely examining the dead man's clothes. Not only were the stitches identical, but so were the jeans. The sports polo, once white, was now a grayish-pink hue due to blood mixed with street grime. That was why Agata hadn't initially realized that the man lying before her was dressed exactly like her husband when he left the house that evening. Her hair stood on end. "Do you recognize this person?" She heard the police officer's voice from afar, as if through a layer of water. "No, it can't be," Agata whispered. "I just spoke to him." "Ma'am," the police officer addressed her louder, "can you identify this person, or should we find other relatives? If not, we'll have to do it at the morgue." "What do you want from me?" Agata suddenly shouted. "Why do I need to identify this man? Your neighbor said they saw your husband climb to the roof of this building and jump off. They couldn't help him and called the ambulance, which informed the police. The neighbors claim the deceased is your husband. Do you confirm this?" The police officer asked sternly, clearly tired of repeating the same questions. Only now did it dawn on Agata what had happened. After their argument, Adrian didn't go to the nearest pub to calm his nerves, as he usually did. This time, he had truly had enough and decided to end his life. This man, unable to control his emotions and desires, had once again failed to face a challenge and chose the path of least resistance. "What doesn't kill us makes us stronger," Agata suddenly recalled. Ma'am, you're holding us and the medics up. The police officer began to lose patience. They still have to take the body to the morgue. If you can't or won't identify this person, just say so and don't waste our time. For the last time, do you recognize this deceased man or not? I can't say for sure because I can't see the face, but the clothes look very similar to what my husband was wearing when he left the house tonight, Agata replied in a broken voice. All right, if no relatives can identify him, we'll have to conduct a genetic examination for identification. Please sign here. These are your statements. Without reading, Agata signed the paper the police officer handed her. The ambulance and police left, and the neighbors dispersed, unwilling to approach the widow after what they had heard. Offering condolences to someone unsure if the deceased was indeed her husband would be at least strange. Agata was left alone on the dimly lit street. The wind tugged at her hastily tied back hair. Stray strands fell on her face and into her eyes. Agata didn't try to brush them away because her body suddenly felt limp and unresponsive. Only now did she realize she was alone with two small children. Her husband, flawed as he was, had at least given the semblance of support in the family, but now she didn't even have that formal checkmark of a marriage certificate. And the children? How would she tell them their father would never return? Agata decided not to tell them for now. They were too young to handle such news calmly. She needed to think about the best way to handle the situation to soften the blow. But the shocks and blows of fate didn't end there. While Agata was pondering how to tell the children about their father's death, creditors learned of the debtor's death and took legal action to collect the debt. Hello. Is this Agata Arias? I am an employee of Absolute Bank. I'm calling to inform you that we are forced to go to court to recover your husband's debt from you as his primary heir. Additionally, we will request that part of the debt be recognized as yours, as debts are also considered joint property. But I haven't yet inherited anything and I didn't consent to my husband's numerous loans. On the contrary, I was categorically against it. Agata tried to explain her situation to the caller. But you did use these borrowed funds, didn't you? Didn't your husband spend them on family needs? No, my husband was a gambler and took loans to cover his losses and place new bets. I understand you, but unfortunately, we cannot cancel the filing of the lawsuit. We will be forwarding your case to court. If you have any evidence, you can try to defend your position. What am I supposed to do now? We have sent you a copy of the lawsuit by mail. Please await further notifications from the court. If you have any questions, you can contact me. Thank you, I understand. All the debts of her husband, who cowardly took his own life to avoid dealing with the mess he had created, suddenly fell on poor Agata. Her bank accounts and cards were frozen, even the card where the children's allowances were deposited. She had to write a statement to the bailiff to lift the restrictions on that card so that the bank, under the court executor's order, would not deduct the children's allowances. Talking to the bailiff, Agata learned that the bank holding their mortgage had also sued and demanded the foreclosure of the collateral, the two-room apartment where she lived with her children. The bailiff said that the court practice in such cases is not in favor of debtors, and they would have to find new housing because all the proceeds would go toward covering the debt to the bank. Thus, Agata was left without her only home and had to ask her elderly father to let her and her children live with him in his one-room apartment. Cramped but not offended, Bernardo Vidal, Agata's father, replied when she appeared one evening on the doorstep of his bachelor apartment with a suitcase and two kids. Dad, we have nowhere else to go. We'll stay until I find cheaper rental housing, Agata assured him. Agata, where are you going to find rental housing now? Have you seen the prices for apartments? Her father asked. Everyone is investing in real estate and gold these days. These are unstable times, so people are looking for something more reliable, and gold and real estate are always good investments. So Agata and her kids started living in Bernardo Vidal's apartment. For Agata, this had an obvious advantage. Grandpa would pick up the kids from daycare and look after them until she came home. The interaction with his grandchildren also benefited Bernardo Vidal. He enjoyed talking with the kids, answering their numerous questions, and reading them stories. Grandpa read us some stories. The children would chorus every evening, bringing a children's book. Well, kids, what story would you like to hear today? Bernardo Vidal would ask, smiling, the wrinkles around his eyes forming little spider webs. Grandpa, please read us something about superheroes. Please, 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 Augustine began to plead. No, I want the story about the princess and the pea, Esmeralda objected. You and your princesses all the time, they are so boring. Let's have superheroes, Augustine protested. No, it will be princesses, Esmeralda continued stubbornly, frowning. Okay, kids, don't argue. You'll get both superheroes and princesses in one story. Their grandpa tried to reconcile them. That's impossible, Augustine objected. Superheroes don't get along with princesses because they are annoying and always wear those inconvenient puffy dresses, while superheroes are always saving everyone and running or flying around in their special suits. There is one story where a princess, a knight, and superheroes all come together, Bernardo Vidal said with a satisfied grin. Shall I tell it? Yes, the kids shouted, anticipating another amazing story. So, Grandpa began. A miller left his 3 sons a mill, a donkey, and a cat. The eldest got the mill, the middle one got the donkey, and the youngest got the cat. The youngest brother was very unhappy with his meager inheritance. Where are the superheroes and princesses? Augustine objected. This is just a zoo. Listen carefully and don't interrupt, Bernardo Vidal said reproachfully. Trust me, in the end, you'll see the princess and the superhero, because heroes don't always have to be people. And if I keep answering your questions, you might lose track of the story and never understand who the real superhero is. The children liked living with Grandpa because he spent all his free time with them, whereas before, they just had to sit in their room and try not to get in their father's way. Agata was grateful to her father for his help and support. To deal with the financial difficulties, Agata took on extra night shifts at a private clinic. Soon, a severely ill patient was admitted. He was placed in the palliative care unit, where terminally ill patients stay. Agata came to give IVs and injections. Unlike the other hospice residents, the new patient, Bruno Garcia, was always surprisingly cheerful and exuded positivity despite his dire diagnosis, which in his case was more of a death sentence than a hope for a suitable therapy. Agata understood that people didn't end up in hospice without reason, so she always tried to cheer up the patients, giving them at least a ray of light in their surrounding darkness. Today, as she entered the room, the first thing she did was adjust the curtains to let in the gentle sunlight. Agata knew from her own experience that a lack of sunlight only worsened a person's condition. Agata is here, bringing light with her, Bruno Garcia greeted her jokingly. Oh, Bruno Garcia, I just adjusted the curtains, she replied with a smile. Agata, how many times have I asked you to just call me Bruno? The patient noted with slight offense. Agata was amazed by this man who, despite his incurable illness, remained optimistic, always joked, and was kind to everyone around him. This elicited respect and endeared him to others. Bruno, how do you manage to stay so cheerful and kind despite the cruel fate that has treated you so harshly? Agata asked him one day. Agata, life is too short to waste on grudges and quarrels, Garcia replied. For the first time during his stay in the hospice, Agata heard a hint of sadness in his voice. Do you really never hold grudges against anyone? Agata was surprised. Forgiveness is the key to happiness and freedom from negative emotions. If you hold a grudge against those who hurt you, those stones on your soul will weigh you down, making it hard to live a happy life. They'll press you down to the ground and prevent you from straightening your shoulders and lifting your head to see how beautiful this world is. People who hold grudges carry stones in their hearts and boulders on their backs. Why should I carry stones? I have enough problems without them, so I walk light, Bruno explained. Only you can explain something complicated so simply, Agata declared with admiration. Soon, Agata realized that despite the age difference, Bruno Garcia evoked incredible sympathy in her. He was full of life wisdom and possessed an inner strength and charm that made him attractive even in his current physical state. A strong friendship developed between them. After a while, both understood that they wanted more from their relationship, but fate had other plans. Agata was in total despair. She knew that the man of her dreams was now living his last days. "Agata, I would give anything to have met you at least 5 years ago," Bruno once said. "I would have sacrificed anything for 5 years of happy life with you. Then, I wouldn't mind dying now because I would have had 5 years of bliss ahead of me. As it is, it makes me doubly sad to leave this world." "Bruno, if you only knew the situation I'm in now," Agata said through her tears, clasping her hands in despair. "Oh, come on," Bruno tried to console her. "Why are you burying me alive? I'll live as long as God allows, but all these days will be ours, and no one can take them from us." "But what about your wife?" Agata asked in surprise. "That woman has long been a stranger to me," Bruno replied. "The only thing that binds us is the stamp in the passport, and believe me, only my current condition keeps me from divorcing her." However, Bruno's wife, Carolina, did not see it that way. She occasionally visited her husband, but only to maintain appearances and avoid gossip among mutual acquaintances. One day, when Carolina Garcia came for another visit, Agata was working her shift, collecting IVs in the hospice after procedures. As she passed the staff room, she heard a familiar voice. Listening closely, she recognized Carolina talking to one of the doctors. "Constancio Gomez, I'm not asking much of you. My husband is already 1 foot in the grave. He's suffering from severe pain. This is not a life, but a torture. Just ease his situation and speed up the process. Understand, I work as a pathologist at the local morgue, and I'll be the one handling your husband's body." "I'll have to give a conclusion about his death," the doctor objected. "This smells like more than one legal violation." "It's great that you'll be the one writing the death certificate," Carolina noted. "This means you can make it foolproof. I'll be the only close relative, and rest assured, I won't have any complaints against you. Quite the opposite, I'll be very grateful, and I know how to show gratitude." "It's not about gratitude," the doctor resisted less confidently. "There are moral principles, and I don't want to burden my conscience with such a sin." "Oh, save those philosophies for someone else," Carolina stated. "As if you're planning to go to heaven. Think about the present reality, not the uncertain afterlife. In this life, living by principles won't feed you. So, stop fooling around. I'm not asking you to rob a bank, just switch the prescribed painkillers for a higher dose. I'm tired of waiting for my husband to die. I want to get the inheritance. This miser hoarded his gold all his life, constantly skimped on me, but he has loads of money, enough for you too." This way, Agata inadvertently learned that Bruno was actually very wealthy and that his wife was trying to have him killed by someone else's hands. She couldn't let this woman's evil plan succeed, so she headed straight to Garcia's room. "Bruno, I need to tell you something." "Please, take this seriously," Agata began, visibly upset. "Agata, what happened? Why are you so pale?" Bruno asked, concerned. "I just overheard a conversation between your wife and our pathologist. Carolina is plotting to have your pain medication dosage increased. Bruno, do you understand what this means? They want to kill you." "Well, we all die sooner or later, and I didn't come here for a vacation," Garcia replied, almost indifferently. "But your wife talked about inheritance. She wants to do this not out of good intentions, but to get your property faster. It's one thing when people want to ease the suffering of their loved ones, and quite another when they think about their personal gain. These are completely different things," Agata said indignantly. "Yes, the situation is certainly unpleasant," Bruno said thoughtfully. "I didn't plan to die so quickly, especially now that you are in my life, so our wishes are clearly not aligned." "So, what are we going to do?" Agata asked him. "If the enemy has launched an attack, we need to take defensive measures. Better yet, we should develop a counterattack plan. Everything will be all right, Agata, I promise you." To ensure the medication wasn't tampered with, Agata took unpaid leave from the municipal hospital where she worked and temporarily switched to a daily schedule at the private clinic. From that point on, Agata came to the hospice every day and personally checked the medication delivery system for Garcia. Her leave was almost over, and she began to fear that the wrongdoers would implement their plan when she wasn't on duty. But fate wasn't on their side. One evening, Agata noticed the pathologist heading to the procedure room. Agata followed him and saw him switching ampoules, already prepared for the patient's 4 systems. The idea was that the nurse wouldn't check the pre-prepared ampoules and would simply use them to set up the system. Holding her breath, Agata stood outside the procedure room, hiding in a niche. As soon as the pathologist left the hospice, she went into the procedure room and replaced the ampoules with those prescribed for Garcia by the doctor. Agata personally administered the 4 to Bruno, deciding to oversee the entire process. "Bruno, it was supposed to happen today," Agata whispered as she approached Bruno's hospital bed. "The pathologist came and switched the ampoules, but I put everything back." "Thank you, Agata," Garcia thanked his savior, looking at her with love and tenderness. "What would I do without you?" After the 4 medication was finished, Bruno pretended to be dead. Agata disconnected all the systems and ran to the staff room to call the doctors, where the pathologist, seemingly casually, was also present, talking with the on-duty Dr. Daniel Delgado. "Arias, did you need something?" the on-duty doctor asked when she burst into the staff room with a frightened look. "A patient stopped showing signs of life after N4 with painkillers," she said, feigning fear. "Which patient?" Daniel Delgado asked. "From room 6, Garcia," Agata clarified. The doctor rushed to the room, followed by the pathologist, as if out of idle curiosity. Seeing the lifeless body of Garcia and knowing his diagnosis, Daniel Delgado didn't bother to check his vital signs and immediately ordered the body to be sent to the morgue. "Constancio Gomez, you arrived just in time," noted the on-duty doctor. "The patient is now your client." "Well, all your patients eventually become our clients," summarized the pathologist as he went to his department. The orderlies transported Garcia's body to the morgue on a gurney. Since it was the end of the workday, Constancio Gomez decided to postpone the autopsy until the morning to avoid showing undue haste. That night, Agata sneaked into the morgue. "Agata, I was afraid you wouldn't come, and I'd have to try to get out of here myself," exclaimed Bruno when he saw her. "Bruno, how could I leave you here among the dead, and in such cold?" Agata asked, slightly offended. "Agata, we need to replace my body with another one, otherwise, our plan will fail in the morning. My wife must be convinced I'm dead until I decide to reveal the truth." "What should we do?" Agata asked. "Relatives will notice the missing body when they come for the funeral. And what guarantee is there that it won't happen tomorrow morning? Then we will be exposed. Yes, using identified bodies is not an option. Agata, please check if there are any bodies here with tags missing names, only an assigned admission number." Agata began carefully examining the tags on the corpse's feet. It was an unpleasant task, but she knew that her beloved's life was at stake, and she was ready for anything for him. After examining nearly the entire room, Agata had almost given up hope of finding an unidentified body. Fortunately, she finally found a suitable one. Moreover, it was near the table where Garcia lay. Agata had thoughtfully brought a wheelchair for Bruno. She moved the unidentified body to the needed table. Together, they struggled to replace Bruno with the unidentified body, transferring Garcia's tag to it, and Agata took the other tag with her just in case. Then she seated Bruno in the wheelchair and wheeled him out of the hospital complex. They took a taxi waiting at the bus stop near the square, prearranged by Agata. She took Bruno to another clinic with a palliative care unit where her friend worked. "Hello, Christiana," Agata greeted her former colleague. "This is the patient who needs palliative care, and there's no one to look after him. We will pay, but a bit later. We had an unpleasant situation, Bruno will sort it out, and then the payment will be made. Please, don't worry about that." "Hi, Agata." "No worries, we can register him later and send the bill after services are provided, so everything is fine," Christiana replied. "Bruno, I'll visit you every day after work, but now I have to go." You know, I have 2 little children, and my father is probably worried too, Agata began to explain. Agata, I understand perfectly. Go to your kids. I'm sure I'll be in good hands, Garcia replied, winking at Christiana. The next morning, Carolina rushed to the clinic as soon as it opened. She had already been informed about her husband's death and wanted to get the death certificate from the morgue as quickly as possible to start the inheritance process. After obtaining the certificate, she visited the pathologist to deliver the promised gratitude. Constancio Gomez, hello. Please accept my sincere gratitude for the excellent work, Carolina greeted, smiling sycophantically, and, lifting one of the papers on the pathologist's desk, she slipped a heavy envelope under it, carefully covering it with the sheet. Hello. I hope you are grateful enough for such a delicate matter, the pathologist noted. I wouldn't want to risk it all for a simple thank you. You can check the thank you note and see for yourself the extent of my generosity, Carolina laughed. And from my side, I hope I won't have any problems later and won't regret my generosity. Everything is done perfectly, Constancio Gomez assured her. The document is official, registered in our system, and appears in the database. If anyone wants to check, they will see everything is in order. And I recommend you cremate the body so that if any questions arise later, nothing can be rechecked. See, you can do excellent work when you want to. I will take your recommendations into account. Thank you again. Goodbye. I hope we don't cross paths again. It would be better for both of us if people think we don't know each other personally. Following the orders of the inconsolable widow, the body left in the morgue was cremated. Satisfied with the outcome, Carolina, having received the death certificate, immediately went to the notary to find out what other documents she needed to prepare to claim the inheritance. Elena dies. Hello. My husband died recently, and I am the sole heir. I came to find out what documents I need to prepare to claim the inheritance. Hello. First, I need to see the original death certificate and documents confirming your relationship with the deceased. We also need to establish the last place of residence of the deceased. Do you have the death certificate with you? I haven't received it yet, but I have a death notice. Will that suffice? Carolina clarified. After all, I am the only heir. No, the death notice only confirms the biological fact of death, the notary replied with slight irritation. Legally, you need the death certificate. This document is essential for the inheritance process. Without it, you cannot claim the inheritance. Additionally, the absence of other heirs must be verified. This initiates an inheritance case, within which special procedures are conducted. And how long will that take? Carolina asked disappointedly. Generally, the certificate of inheritance rights is issued no earlier than 6 months after the death of the deceased. It can be issued earlier if there is reliable evidence that there are no other heirs entitled to the inheritance or a part of it besides those who have applied for the certificate, the notary replied. Do you have such reliable confirmations of the absence of other heirs? I don't think so, the visitor replied, confused. Then there are no grounds for shortening the general term for issuing the certificate. But my late husband and I have no children, and his parents have long passed away. As far as I know, children, parents, and the spouse inherit first, Carolina objected. Can you reliably confirm that your husband has no children out of wedlock? Elena Dice countered. Do I have to bring statements from all the mothers that their children were not fathered by my husband? That's absurd. The new widow shouted, tired of keeping up appearances. It's even more absurd to claim an inheritance prematurely, without waiting for the death of the inheritor, declared a new visitor who abruptly interrupted the conversation from the doorway. Carolina momentarily thought she was having auditory hallucinations, as she could swear the voice of the tactless individual rudely intruding into her conversation with the notary sounded very much like her deceased husband's. Garcia turned around, hoping to dispel her doubts, and froze in horror. In the doorway, sitting majestically in a wheelchair, was her resurrected husband. Although Carolina was not a true believer, she instinctively crossed herself just in case. This can't be! She exclaimed in shock. You're dead. I saw them cremate you myself. Well, who knows what you might have imagined, dear wife, Bruno Garcia replied, smiling. You've always had a knack for mistaking wishes for reality. But I have a death notice for you, Carolina countered. Did I imagine that too? And how you managed to get a fake death certificate to illegally claim my property is something you'll explain to the investigator later, Bruno declared unequivocally. But don't worry, I won't file a police report if you don't make a fuss and agree to my terms for the divorce. So, if you behave, you won't have to expect a summons. You faked your death? How did you manage to fool the doctors? Carolina screamed. So that's all you care about right now? Bruno replied with a smirk. Sorry for not meeting your expectations and overdosing on narcotic medications as planned with the pathologist. Oh, sorry, did I say that out loud? I guess I have to reveal everything now. Your little secret is no longer hidden from anyone, and with one call, law enforcement officers will start questioning witnesses and your accomplice. The report is prepared and is with a friend of mine in the police. He'll hold onto it for now, but if anything goes wrong, he'll move forward with it. You're bluffing. You have no witnesses, and you'll never prove I was involved in anything, Carolina yelled, her face turning red with anger. I was told you died, which isn't surprising given your diagnosis. I gave permission for the cremation and received the death certificate. That's all. Whatever mix-up happened with the doctors is not my problem. They'll blame it on a medical error. Keep comforting yourself with those hopes, no one's stopping you. But you can forget about my property because I'm divorcing you. And since we had a prenuptial agreement, you'll only get your personal belongings after the divorce. Forget about the jewelry, fur coats, and other luxury items bought with my money. I have documents proving they were purchased with my funds. And you were unemployed during this time, without any objective reasons, so you didn't contribute to our joint property. But if you behave, I might give you something, Bruno concluded. I won't let this go, Carolina shrieked. You'll see, I'll hire the best lawyer, and he'll take everything from you. Go ahead, hire one. You'll need a good lawyer, especially for a criminal case, so I suggest you start looking now, Bruno taunted her. Time is ticking. These might be your last hours of freedom. So, should I call my friend, or will you agree to the divorce on my terms? Carolina quickly realized that having a fake death certificate in her possession complicated her situation. If the authorities questioned the pathologist who issued the certificate, he wouldn't take the fall alone and would expose her. The odds were against her, so she had no choice but to agree to her husband's terms. Better to leave with some property than end up with nothing and a criminal record in her old age. Fine, I agree. But please, at least leave me a one-room apartment in memory of our past days, Carolina pleaded. I'm in a good mood today, so I'm not throwing you out on the street, though you deserve it, Bruno said with reproach. I'll leave you one of the one-bedroom apartments I rent out, but I'll choose which one myself. Immediately after talking with her resurrected husband, Carolina rushed to the pathologist who issued the death certificate. She burst into his office without any ceremony and started voicing her complaints. Where did you get your diploma? From a subway station. And good health to you, Constancio Gomez responded, shocked by her behavior. Maybe you could explain what's going on before you start questioning my credentials. If you had a real diploma, you could tell the difference between a dead person and a living one, Carolina shouted angrily. No one has ever complained before, the pathologist muttered, confused. Well, congratulations on your first. You gave me a death certificate for my husband, assured me he was dead, but he's very much alive. Listen, lady, even if we made a mistake declaring death, your husband was later autopsied and then cremated. After all those procedures, people usually don't survive. At least, that's what we were taught in university and residency, so your husband is definitely dead. I don't understand your complaint. I just came from the notary's office, where my husband also showed up. Yes, the one who survived autopsy and cremation. He ruined my plans to inherit and now wants to divorce me because he somehow learned about our painkiller scheme. Are you sure you spoke with your husband? Constancio Gomez cautiously asked. Who else would I have been talking to? Carolina shouted even louder. Well, I don't know, the pathologist shrugged. It's a stressful situation, and not everyone can handle it well. Maybe your conscience is so troubled that your husband's spirit came to haunt you. Are you mocking me, or are you seriously spouting such nonsense? Carolina screeched. From a medical standpoint, this is called visual and auditory hallucinations, stated the pathologist. Did anyone else see your so-called deceased husband? Can anyone confirm your words? This all happened in the notary's office. At least 3 people besides me saw my husband, the notary, his assistant, and the secretary. Do you think we all had the same hallucination at the same time? That's quite possible in a case of mass psychosis, Constancio Gomez suggested. When was the last time you saw a psychiatrist? Carolina asked. With such assumptions and work quality, I don't understand how you are allowed to practice. Stop playing dumb, you didn't fulfill your part of the deal, so return the money I paid you. Fear God. What are you talking about? You paid for cremation services and related services at the rate approved by the municipal authorities. The service was performed in full according to the acceptance certificate. You had no complaints at that time. To hell with the rate. Carolina was seriously angry now. I'm talking about the gratitude. Return it immediately, I need that money for my divorce. I don't understand what you're talking about, the pathologist said, feigning surprise. You thanked me and said thank you. How do you propose I return that thank you? Take it back if you can, I don't mind. Are you pretending, or are you really that dumb? I'm talking about the gratitude in a large sum of money that you received in a white envelope for the work done, which turned out not to be done. Therefore, you don't deserve such gratitude. Once again, I don't know what you're talking about. I received no envelopes from you, and we had no agreement. If you believe we had a deal that I violated, go to court. But I strongly recommend getting a certificate from a psychiatrist first, you'll need it anyway. Now I must leave, I have pressing matters to attend to. You scoundrel, Carolina hissed through her teeth. How does the earth bear such people? Just like it bears you, the pathologist retorted and walked away. Fine, the world is round, we'll meet again somewhere, Carolina called after him. She left empty-handed, having wasted her last savings. The divorce process went surprisingly quickly, as neither party had any objections and they signed an agreement dividing the property that supplemented the prenuptial agreement. As promised, Garcia left his ex-wife a one-room apartment in a distant residential area. It was livable, but there would be no luxury. Bruno, did you deliberately choose the most remote area of the city? Carolina couldn't help but snipe after receiving her copy of the notarized agreement. Carolina, you keep this up, and I'll change my mind about giving you even that apartment. We haven't even left the notary's office yet, so be careful with your words. In your position, you should be silent, and here I am tolerating your nastiness even after divorcing you, after everything you've done to me. Of course, you are a noble knight, and I was always the real witch. Notice, I didn't say that, you yourself see who is who, Garcia laughed. The cat will cry for the mouse's tears yet. Dear, the tears have already been shed. You are the cat who is now paying for your sins. Or have you forgotten how you planned to send me to my ancestors much earlier than my time for the sake of inheritance? Carolina said nothing, just glared, her eyes narrowing with hatred. Bruno looked at her and didn't recognize the woman he once thought was his perfect match. Instead of the interesting girl, an embittered creature now looked at him, only partially resembling a human. Bruno thought there was something animalistic in her features, like a snarling jackal or a large rat. After completing the divorce and related procedures, Bruno decided to take perhaps the last desperate step in his life. Agata, marry me, he proposed to his beloved, who had been faithfully caring for him all this time. Bruno, I have feelings for you too, but this isn't right, Agata hesitated. What's not right about it? Bruno was surprised. We're both adults, capable, and free from other relationships. What's stopping us from formalizing our feelings legally? I can't do this. We don't know how much time you have left. You've just gotten divorced. Why do we need this now? You already know how I feel about you. Those are just excuses, Garcia cut in. I want to provide for the woman I met so late in life. Let me at least do that for you since I can't promise we'll live long and happily. Bruno looked at Agata with puppy dog eyes, and she couldn't resist or say no to him. A week later, they were married. There was no white dress or celebration. They simply registered their marriage and celebrated with a romantic dinner. I've never been as happy in my life as I am now, Bruno shared his feelings with Agata. I'll be honest, I've met many women along the way, but they were all fleeting interests, and within a couple of weeks, I lost interest in them. What about your wife? Agata was surprised. We weren't married for long. We met at an event where mutual friends had invited us, Garcia began to recall. Carolina kept to herself, which caught my attention. I approached her to find out why she wasn't mingling with the others, and we started talking. At the time, it seemed like I could talk to her about anything. That's what I liked about her. It was only years later that I realized she had only a superficial knowledge of various subjects and skillfully used this information. But dig deeper, and she couldn't keep up and started talking nonsense. Why didn't you divorce her then? I don't know, Bruno replied sadly. While we were living together, I got used to her, and I didn't really want to change anything, plus I never found a suitable replacement until I met you. Let's not dwell on the sad stuff. You also have a sad history of past relationships, so we'll heal each other's emotional wounds. By the way, you should move your children in with me. It's not right for them to live separately from their mother, even if it's with their grandfather. They're shy. I don't know how they'll react, Agata said. But I'll try to introduce them to you first. Let's not put it off and do it tomorrow. How about that? Garcia asked with a smile. I'll think about your proposal, Agata replied with a serious face. Oh, now you're talking. Should I make an appointment to talk about serious matters? Bruno joked. I'm always available for you, and even if I had appointments, I'd see you out of turn. Well, thank you for that, Bruno said, laughing. Agata's mock seriousness amused him. The next day, Agata brought her children to meet Bruno. The kids quickly warmed up to him, but they were most excited about the children's room prepared especially for them. It was full of toys and had beds shaped like cartoon characters. Kids, Bruno wants to tell you something, their mother said to Esmeralda and Augustine. So, boys and girls, and their parents, do you like the room? Bruno asked. Yes, the kids shouted in unison. Would you like it to be yours? Garcia continued. Yes. Is that possible? The children asked with sincere innocence. This house now belongs to your mom, which means this room is yours, and it was set up especially for you. The children eagerly agreed to live in Bruno's house with their mother, as they had always dreamed of having a room like this. They had seen similar children's rooms on TV shows and cartoons, and now their dream had come true. Agata was immensely grateful to Bruno for making not only her, but also her children's dreams come true, even though he didn't have to do anything for them. But Garcia didn't see it that way. Setting up the children's room, he thought first of his beloved woman. If he could make the children happy, their mother would be happy too. God hadn't given Bruno his own children, and now he smiled as he watched the kids play, unable to share one particular toy despite the abundance of others in their new room. The sudden noise and children's voices in the house didn't tire him. On the contrary, these sounds brought life into his home. The children energized everyone around with their boundless vitality. A happy week passed for the Garcia family. Nothing foretold trouble on this seemingly ordinary summer evening. Agata put the children to bed and came to their bedroom to give Bruno his nightly painkiller injection. Bruno was lying on the bed with his eyes closed, and Agata thought he had fallen asleep while waiting for her. She didn't want to wake him, but she feared he might jerk in his sleep when she tried to administer the medication through the catheter in his vein. So she gently touched his hand and called his name. "Bruno, wake up, dear. We need to give you your painkiller shot, and then you can sleep peacefully again." But Garcia didn't respond, even though he usually slept lightly. Bruno didn't wake up from her attempts to rouse him or from loud calls. Agata didn't want to believe her suspicions. She tried to ignore the creeping fear, but after several fruitless attempts to wake her husband, she decided to check his pulse. There was no heartbeat. Agata sank to the floor beside the bed because her legs could no longer support her. "It's over," she said bitterly out loud. What an injustice! He suffered so much, and he only got a pitiful week of happiness. Just 1 week. A lump formed in her throat, something inside her swelled and prevented her from breathing properly. Tears welled up in her eyes and salty drops streamed down her face. Agata tried to hold back her tears, but something inside her broke, and the twice-widowed woman could no longer control herself. It was as if a dam had burst, and tears streamed uncontrollably down her face. Agata was trembling and shivering. She wrapped her arms around her knees and buried her face in them, shaking with silent sobs. She didn't know how much time had passed. For her, time had stopped along with her beloved's heart. Despite her state, Agata knew she had to do something. She called an ambulance so they could officially declare the biological death and take her husband's body to the morgue. She was a widow again and had to go through all the bureaucratic procedures of officially erasing a deceased person from social life. But this time, it was much more painful. Bruno's death was a tremendous sorrow for Agata, as she initially couldn't imagine her life without her beloved. The inconsolable twice-widowed woman didn't know what to do with her grief, but she gradually began to recover because she still had a purpose in life, her twins. Agata decided not to succumb to self-destruction or fate. She chose to channel her grief into helping others. Most of the inheritance she received after her second husband's death was donated to a cancer charity. Agata wanted to do everything she could to help those fighting this terrible disease. Through her dedication and efforts, Agata became the head of the regional branch of this charity in her city. She worked actively to raise funds and spread awareness about cancer. Every day, Agata interacted with people diagnosed with cancer or their loved ones, always finding the right words of support. "Hello. Our charity supports people facing cancer. We help those undergoing treatment and their families. How can I assist you?" Agata would usually say to visitors. "Good afternoon. I've been diagnosed with lung cancer. I'd like to get help from your charity. Don't lose hope. Remember, a diagnosis is not a death sentence. Have you started treatment?" "Yes, I'm currently undergoing chemotherapy, but the treatment is very expensive, so I need financial support." The decision to provide financial assistance is made by the charity's board. You'll need to submit an application along with documents confirming your diagnosis, the need for expensive treatment, and your inability to pay for it or receive a quota. How long will the decision take? It depends on the number of applications already received, the available funds, and other conditions, such as the stage of the disease and the applicant's age. Children are always given priority. And if my application isn't approved, will I have any other options? Even if the application isn't approved, we can offer informational and psychological support and connect you with other organizations that may be able to help. I see. Can you tell me more about the help you can provide? Of course. We can give you detailed information about your illness, modern treatment methods, side effects, and how to manage them. We also offer consultations with psychologists and specialists who can help you adapt to your new situation. Additionally, we can connect you with other organizations that can provide financial or other assistance. And how can I access these services? Start by filling out a questionnaire. You can do this at our office or online. After that, we'll contact you to discuss the next steps. Agata's productive work helped many people receive the necessary assistance and support, and she found a new purpose in life through her activities in the charity. She used her pain not to pity herself, but to help others avoid similar suffering. Naturally, Agata also closed the chapter on her previous life, settling all the debts left by her irresponsible first husband. The remaining funds were placed in a savings account in her children's names. These funds were intended to help her children get started in life when they turned 18. Agata hoped they would use the money wisely as they grew up,